officially written, I guess. I think a lot of the big cities, you're going to see the hotels being protected. We don't have hotels. We have a venue that hosts weddings, that have however many people can go there. I think we should take consideration to that. I think it's a great thing for some town revenue. I think the concerning part to me personally, and actually the planning board has an auxiliary committee they just started, and I jumped on that because I feel like there's going to be a lot of overlap. That's for pretty much if you don't rent on Airbnb, but you want to rent long-term, a shed in your backyard, are you going to be allowed to? We're going to try to set some guidelines for what is an allowable space. But as we were saying last week, I think it should be legal units. I think it should be, and if it's not going to be a legal unit, if a house is allowed to be shared, I guess going by the code, is it meeting egress? Is it a safe house? Is it up to code as far as safety concerns, smoke detectors, windows, all that? Outside of that, I don't know. Personally, I deal with rentals. I'm not the direct host, but I can tell you, you're getting a mixed bag. You could get a bad Airbnb tenant. You could get a really bad long-term tenant. The good side to Airbnb tenants is if they break the rules, they're gone. If they break the rules, it's in the guidelines on Airbnb that your lease can be terminated and you'll be thrown off the property. If you rent to someone on an annual basis and they throw a 100-person party, well, you can send the police there, but you certainly can't throw them out. And they could do that every week until housing court rules in your favor. So definitely think there's goods and bads for each. And yeah, I think safety should be the number one concern, and just, overdevelopment. I wouldn't want to stop someone from sharing their house, but you got to think of, I guess, things being equal. What if everybody did that? But we're not seeing that now with, as was stated, 19 units. I don't think we're being overrun by Airbnb. So I think if we keep a moderate approach to it and a decent set of guidelines and stuff, I think we charge forward.
Yeah.
Hi,
Okay.
this is Tony.
Hello. Go ahead.
Hi, it's Tony. I just called in.
Hey, Tony.
Yeah, we can hear you, Tony. Go ahead.
No, I was just announcing that I was.
Oh, all right. I thought maybe you wanted to jump in. All right.
I'm
So,
here if you need me.
all right. Thank you. So anyway, I'm not sure what we really expect to accomplish in this essentially our first real meeting. But I think, we're off to a good start. I like what I saw with Marie's slides. I mean, that it's fairly well. It seems like they try to do a good self-regulation in their respect. So now we as a group, I think now have to define what are we going to, if we have to define what we think becomes an eligible rental unit, right? Clearly, I own a single family home. Obviously, I could rent the room I'm sitting in right now, right? I could say, okay, this becomes an Airbnb unit. It's a room. It'll have a bed in it. It'll have its smoke detector, and it has egress windows. In a single family house, that's pretty much all you're going to need, right? I don't have to worry about what's the use of the building. It's a single family home. That, right? So, and if somebody wants to do that, and as long as they register properly, it shouldn't be a problem. I think the interesting situation gets to the point where if somebody has a single family home and they want to rent out something that's more than just a bed, and we kind of go into a gray area. Let's call something a guest suite. right? Theoretically, you could have a guest suite in your home, right? But as a guest suite, it's for guests, which means you're not collecting rent, right? So now if we take that guest suite and put it on Airbnb, does it change its legal standing within, as far as the town of Nahant is concerned? Anyone want to jump on that?
How do you describe a guest suite, Wayne? Does it have its own entrance and exit? Does it have its own kitchen? Or is it
Well,
just?
see, that's just it. A guest suite could be any number of things. All right, a guest suite could be a whole level of someone's house that may or may not, that would probably have its own bathroom, but maybe it doesn't have a kitchen. Maybe it does, right? Like let's use the term in-law apartment for a minute, right? A lot of people have within the town of Nahant have spaces in their house that have kitchens, bathrooms, and bedrooms, and it's called an in-law apartment. Theoretically occupied by a family member, which makes it okay. And then one of the other requirements of an in-law apartment is that all individuals within the home have to be able to move freely. In other words, there's not a locked door in between these two units. But if you were to take that same space and make it, turn it into a short-term rental space, I don't think you're going to leave your door open. That whatever that door that may be between them, right? So that it kind of changes things. So these are the little nuances of what's rentable and what isn't rentable. Maybe could come into question. And I think that's where we need to define it. That's where we as a committee need to decide what are we going to allow to be rented, as opposed to just what the zoning right now, our zoning regulations state. Because if I had a 2-family home, obviously I could say, well, why can't I rent out one unit? I'll live in one and I rent the other one. I don't see where anyone could have a problem with that. If I had a 12-unit building and I only lived in one of them and rented 11 other units, somebody might have a complaint with that, right? So you know what I mean? I don't think there's any real easy answer to those types of questions. But we've got some buildings in Nahant that have multiple units. And if somebody wanted to take one of those buildings with multiple units, turn it into a whole bunch of Airbnb type units, of short-term rental units, you probably hear some complaining. So maybe, that's where I'm trying to say we need to tweak it. What's permissible and what's going to be permissible and what isn't.
Yeah, I mean, every time you develop new regulations, you look at what problem are you trying to solve. So you first identify the problem, right? So safety is number one. I think everybody wants for all these properties to be safe. So that's when building department, fire department, health department all come in with inspections, right? And then what other problems could we have? So is it that those rented short-term rentals can be more noisy than long-term rentals? Is it that there is not enough parking? Is it that it changes the makeup of the neighborhood, right? So you always kind of look at the problem you're trying to solve and determine, is it really a problem in Nahant? Because we're a small community. And then get perspectives on it and make a decision.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So Wayne,
Yeah, go ahead.
what was just said included an initial inspection by Building, Fire, and Health.
Absolutely.
And our codes, as I said before, apply a minimum which address a lot of the concerns that routinely come up in all of these communities that either have passed local regulations or are considering. Unfortunately, there are a lot of problems that occur in the developing of regulations when developing local regulations, when the state regulations that we work with building, health, and fire are not factored in initially. So there's a lot of redundancy, and many of the resulting problems can be avoided when the people developing the regulations factor in those minimums first. So when you're bringing in building, health, and fire, looking to see if the unit being considered, the unit, the space, I should say, does it comply with the minimum requirements already on the books? And far too often it does not. But I think it's a very good endeavor to get these units that are on the open marketplace for rental, short-term use, in this case with us. Get your inspectional services in there to make a determination as to whether the minimum requirements are being met. You mentioned before, Wayne, that whether we have the staff to do it or not is something that gets tackled later. First, I like the idea that we are looking at what do we start with for the minimums, and what is it that this community wants in terms of short-term rental stock. So it's all good.
I mean, I certainly agree on the minimum standard thing, and that'll be boilerplate, I think, on anything that we end up with. We're gonna, compliance with local, bylaws, that'll be in the base of what we do. But I'm just thinking there seems, depending on which city or town you look up, and I've done a dozen of them at this point, it seems like they all seem to come from a totally different viewpoint, and they all seem to be handling it differently. Well, and let's go back to that Linfield thing for a second. Linfield enacted a new regulation as a result of that fiasco they had with a person that was shot at one of these parties. They banned all short-term rentals less than 30 days. They just outright banned it. And then that case that Rob was showing us, that the person that owned that property went to court and tried to say that he wasn't subject to that regulation because he was already existed before they developed that regulation. And then that was thrown out. He lost that issue in court. But so they took a very draconian approach to this because of what happened there. They said, well, you know what, we'll eliminate the problem because we'll just eliminate all short-term rentals. As far as I know, it's still holding up. I haven't heard. I'm sure if somebody goes to court and beats it, I'm sure we'll hear about it on the news.
It's a Supreme Court case, Wayne, so I don't know if it'll be what'll happen to that. But the bottom, what I wanted to point out was the court's opinion as far as maintaining neighborhoods the way people know them to be, not having the introduction of these new businesses coming in and changing the overall character of the neighborhoods.
Right. No, I agree. But the particulars of that case were that the person who appealed that case was not appealing at the time, not appealing the short-term rental ban. He was appealing the fact that he was grandfathered in, and that it wouldn't apply to him.
Well, I think it went a little further than that in saying that he was basically trying to, and I don't remember the specific language, say that it was included under boarders and lodgers in the current town bylaws, and the court came back and said, no, this is a short-term rental. This is entirely different. It's an entirely different type of use, so you never were allowed to have this to begin with. And then, as you point out, the city of Linfield then turned around after that court case and said, you know what, we're just gonna close that door and make sure we don't have any question about this going forward. And then they got rid of the whole thing. Something else I want to just mention as far as that John has been talking about, as far as the laws, bylaws, whatever that you and John have to work with. I've seen reference, and it makes perfect sense, and I know it's going to happen anyway, but I've seen reference to 105 CMR 410, the Department of Health regulations, which basically has everything in it as far as smoke detectors and egress and everything else. It's all in there. So basically, I think it's Gloucester just mentions, everything is subject to this as far as their own rental properties, not necessarily B&Bs, because they don't even bring them up. But the bottom line is that if we wanted to be specific and just include this as a requirement that all living units must comply with this CMR, I don't know what else we could possibly do to cover it that would be greater than this. And you're already doing it.
Rob, I hope it's as simple as what you just described, because we'll all be saving a lot of time and energy.
Well, you're already doing it. I'm guessing.
Yep,
John?
we lost. I lost you, Rob.
John?
I would like to add that each person on this committee, I would like to have you read through the housing code, which is I don't think is complicated. I don't think it requires much explanation, and it's not a terribly tough read, as in my opinion is the building code. So I hats off to Wayne for understanding all of the building codes iterations over the years. With your permission, I'd like to read one sentence from that regulation, section 010, the scope of the housing code. Can I do that?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Section A, no person shall occupy as owner occupant or let to another for occupancy any dwelling unit, mobile dwelling unit, or rooming unit for the purpose of living, sleeping, cooking, or eating therein, which does not comply with the requirements of 105 CMR 410.000, which is the housing code.
Mm-hmm.
I like that as a summary. You've got to comply with this code, and the subtitle of this is minimum standards of fitness for human habitation. As I said in my opening remarks, in my initial remarks, we each have regulations that we are tasked with enforcing, and those regulations are considered minimum standards. Mine are minimum standards of fitness for human habitation. And so I heartily endorse what Rob was saying. First and foremost, any applicant identifying any space for to be let to anyone for any purpose must comply with the minimum standards established in the building health and fire codes. And if each person in this group were to familiarize themselves with the housing code 105 CMR 410, that would establish for you the minimums that are already in place. And something such as I heard Steve earlier mention a shed, no, would not comply. So you move on.
So could this be the first recommended rule, even though it's already in place anyway?
Oh,
So could this be like start of some kind of a document that we develop with like recommended rules for Airbnbs? I think that would be the baseline, right?
yes.
Well, I'm not quite sure we're ready for that yet, but I mean,
When we're there, this is where we start.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think there's a lot of quotations of different regulations in everybody's, you know, I know the city of Boston said shall comply with, you know, X, Y, and Z. And this code and that code and that type of stuff, I'm sure we'll get in the text of our what we end up with. It's more I'm more concerned about the subtleties of what is going to be considered a rentable space. Something like when you said like boats and RVs, and you know, this certainly we don't have a marina facility in the town of Nahant, so in theory you wouldn't have a place to put a boat that you could rent. But you know what, you know, but to maybe to say that it's not allowed, it would be just to get in front of it, because if you don't say it's not allowed, then it would be, you know, someone's going to say, well, it doesn't say I couldn't do it, right? I don't want to see someone on a mooring out there at the
That's
town
right.
hall, at the town pier going, oh, I rented this boat, I'm sitting on a mooring,
Right.
you know, and then have, you know, and they have no facility. Oh yeah, sure, there's a bathroom up there, you know, that bathroom at the wharf, you know, I mean, come on. I mean, well,
No.
I mean, you know,
But
cover if we can.
that boat does not meet 105 CMR 410.
Yeah, but you could rent a boat. You can rent a boat in Boston Harbor. You can rent a boat in Salem Harbor.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Our current bylaws already contain a list of things that are considered non-conforming. And trailers are one of them.
Yeah,
There's
right.
quite a few different items in there. I don't know if tree houses was in there, but I think it might be. The interesting thing is that a boat is allowed under our current bylaw in season, which is, I think, their effort to say that you can't live in it while it's sitting in your backyard, but if you're out on a mooring, you can.
You can live in your boat.
It's not something I would want to do, and quite honestly.
No, but that's what I'm
something
saying, though.
that
The point, when that regulation or whatever bylaw was put in place, I don't think anyone was thinking about the fact that it was going to be someone other than the owner that might be living in that boat.
Wayne, I only mention it because it's in the bylaw now.
No, I understand that, but
I
that's what
don't
I'm saying.
agree with it. And quite honestly, I would resist it. I would resist it very strongly because we don't have any sort of a pump out facility to maintain it.
Exactly. No, well, that's why I'm bringing it up, right? I could stay overnight in my boat, right? So if I happen to be on a mooring in town of Nahant and stayed overnight, now did I just violate a zoning bylaw? Did I, you know? That's what I'm saying. Let's start at a base point, and then we'll work our way out to those extremities of tree houses and boats and campers and RVs. I mean, let's start with the basic stuff, and then we'll branch out, go into that other stuff. I mean, we're working on a good hour here now. I'm not sure what everyone else's timing is like. So what I'd like to do is reach out to our non-committee guests and see if anyone wants to jump in and either has a question or a comment. And I think, Rob, I don't know how to pick out someone that's raising their hand or whatever. So I'm not sure I understand how to make that happen.
I'm showing 11 people out there now. Don't see anybody asking to speak out. I mean, if they unmute, they can speak out.
Okay, I'll ask again, is anyone out there that's not on this committee would like to jump in here and speak at all? No? Okay, just want to make sure I'm not.
Michelle Capano has her hand up.
Okay, Michelle?
Hey, thank you. Michelle Capano, 29 Ocean Street. I did clarifying question regarding rentals in town. Aren't they all supposed to go through an annual inspection or a one-time inspection if someone has a multifamily? How is that process today? And how can that process be augmented in a way that these short-term rentals at least go through an annual inspection?
Okay, well, John would be the right person to answer that question.
Yes, the town of Nahant has a certificate of fitness, which requires that every dwelling unit be inspected by an agent of the Board of Health at every change of occupancy.
Okay. So for rentals, if you've someone that's been in the apartment 3 years and they move out, then the next renter that comes in, the owner would have to get a new certificate.
Correct.
Okay. Then I guess one of the things for the
Miss-
board,
Add,
oh
though,
no, go ahead, John.
when this was initially put in place, there was a working relationship with the electric company. And our certificate of fitness was modeled after that, which was already in place in Lynn. And there was a point at which the electric company stopped providing lists of changes of people responsible for billing. And we no longer had something to work with. So we do not currently have a mechanism to exercise the oversight that we could back when the electric company was providing us with that list upon our asking.
So it's really based on the property owner's honor system.
Correct.
If there's a change, okay, that's
That's-
tough. Okay.
The smart property owner calls me and says, I'm having a change of occupants in my rental unit, whether it's an apartment or a house, and I would like a certificate of fitness. And for the mere cost of $35, I go in and inspect it. And if there are deficiencies, the property owner has them corrected, and I issue a certificate of fitness, which allows the property owner to pass along to the occupant that upon your first day of residence, this unit meets the minimum standards as established by the state.
Mhm.
Most
So I
people
guess
most people do not avail themselves of that ability.
okay.
That's why I say the smart ones do.
Yeah, so that's really helpful. I think, so one thing that comes to mind is excise tax. And when there's an increase or decrease in excise tax on a particular property, you'll see a new registration coming in. So that may be another avenue of trying to compare, from prior year to current year, if there's a tenant that moves out at a particular location. Because they want to register their car in town, right? Lower insurance, auto insurance by doing so.
I don't think there's any real mechanism to compare like excise tax bills with who's living in a particular home.
Well, yes, because the name of the excise tax bill is going to go to the owner of the vehicle registered at that property. And you have to have the garage listed
Not
as
like
part of your
sit-
auto insurance.
It's not sitting on a data sheet that, it's going to jump out at anyone. It's kind of an unrelated piece of information that's I'm sure maybe that somebody would, someday there'll be some kind of a mix with that, but it's, that would be something that would be cumbersome to handle. Seems to me anyway. But
I disagree. I think somebody with database skills can probably figure out the comparison. Anyways, I was just curious on how that process works. So that was helpful. and how you may consider, working with, our Airbnb, providers in town in terms of, some annual process, that can help, addition to, for fee generation.
There's certainly nothing stopping us from developing a regulation that says that every one of these units needs to be inspected annually. That's exactly what this process is developing. What
Well,
are we
isn't
gonna
that consistent with the city of Boston or other communities or cities and
do
towns that
that?
have hotels, that these large hotels, 50, 100, 200 units are inspected annually because they have to go through certain,
Hotel will
Um,
be, hotels will go under a totally different set of regulations. They get fire inspections on a regular basis and at the minimum annual inspection. A typical, say it's a 2-family home, other than the inspection that John was talking about, certificate of fitness, that would only have been inspected when it was constructed or when
Right.
some other work was done. Or when it changes hands, which is when you get into the smoke detector thing, fire, when the building changes hands, but there's no annual inspection of a 2 or 3 family home. You have to get into, I believe it's 4 families and up before there's an inspection, and that inspection is only every 5 years.
okay.
That from
But
from building code standpoint, there's different levels of inspection for different types of buildings.
But there's nothing stopping us from amending our bylaws to put something in
Absolutely.
place.
No, it doesn't have
Okay.
to be law. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, that's what I'm going after. So that's great. And then
We can
would you,
many
uh,
rules we laws passes at town hall.
okay. And then the other thing that came up that I had saw recently was around trash usage. So obviously, if someone has or rents a property for a weekend for an event, they generate more trash than the typical property owner would have generated in a week or a month. And so how can those properties also pay a higher surcharge in trash because of their business use? And so that's something else to, hopefully that the committee would also look into as well.
Sure, sounds reasonable.
Well,
Okay, thanks.
I see in other communities that in some cases, they don't, they rule out the opportunity to have an event, so to speak, at a property. And that certainly would have an impact on it too.
Mhm.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah, some
think-
communities ban commercial usage of short-term rentals, so that means you couldn't really run it for a party or, other events, so that takes care of that.
Right. So this is exactly what we need to do. We're all, looking at these things from slightly different perspectives, but I think we're all got the same end result in mind, that we need to develop a set of rules that works for the town of Nahant. So I would suggest that we kind of go out on each on our own for at least, well, let me ask you this. When do we want to do for the next meeting? 2 weeks?
Yeah, we were
That
second
was
and
our
fourth,
schedule, right, Resident, every 2 weeks?
second and fourth Tuesday of every month.
Okay. So why don't we plan on doing this? I'm just suggesting it. Let's I know I'm gonna, whip through some more cities and towns. What are they doing? What are they not doing? And we can share that information through the website, the web address that they've given us. In other words, we're not, if I was to say, print up a copy or select something from some city and send it to everybody, that's not considered a meeting. We're just sharing information, so we can do that.
I actually already started for myself, like a running document of issues I identified, some best practices I saw from different towns.
Yeah,
So if
exactly.
you guys want me to post it on the shared link, I can post it and we can discuss stuff like this next time we meet and kind of
Right,
start working on it.
Because we're not meeting in person, so we're not like, standing around
Right.
handing out, pieces of paper. I think that's an excellent thing to do. And so anyone that finds something interesting like that piece that you brought up earlier, Rob,
Yeah.
is to put it on the shared email address so we can all access it. right? And then other people can access that email too, right? So if anyone in the general public is interested in what we're up to or what we're looking at, they can access that. And, we'll put it together, get together in 2 weeks and hash it out, fine tune it, and we'll just keep doing that. As we
Can I
go.
make another suggestion?
Go ahead.
I'm going to offer you another suggestion. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to share my screen again.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is an example of a spreadsheet that I've just started as an example only.
Go ahead.
It's based primarily on the Newton as far as the guidelines that they currently have in place, although I salted in a little bit of Cambridge also. And basically what I'm suggesting here is that I'd be willing to do it. I will create a document like this based on one city or another city as far as their regulations, distribute it to everyone and give everybody the opportunity to vote on whether or not they like that particular, on a line by line basis, whether or not they like some of the issues that are being presented here.
Sounds good.
Such as, let's see, requirement of short-term rentals, Newton and Cambridge, compliance, no residential unit shall be offered as a short-term rental except in compliance with the provisions of the article. Obviously very general, but if I click on it and put a yes there, that means I'm agreeing with it. What I can do with this is that if everybody say completes it, maybe we'll have a lot more agreement, or at least some agreement, than we do disagreement. We can both vote yes, we can vote no, we can vote as far as pass. And when I say pass, I'm talking about saying I don't want to say yes or no right now, but I will mention that over in comments that we have this thing involving Stiller versus Linfield. And how that would apply to change your decision. But in the long run, if we go through this and we can do one city at a time, or we can do one city as a template and then pull in stuff from other cities or towns that we liked and do the same thing again as far as putting it all in one document, then what I would do is like if I put this first one together, everyone puts in their entries. I take the results of everyone's opinions, put it into the spreadsheet so that we can see who voted, how each of us voted, and whether or not something is going to be embraced or refused.
So this is Tony. Rob, the only thing about the process that you just talked about is the voting like yes or no on a certain subject matter, like whether you're in favor of it or not, that you got to do as a group in a public setting, in a public meeting. So what you could do is send the spreadsheet out with that column empty, and then each of you individually, keep it to yourself though, put yes or no. And then when you meet in 2 weeks, you share your opinion on each subject matter. The only thing is it becomes an open meeting law violation if you share your opinion with a fellow committee member, or all of the other committee members, outside of the open meeting.
Gotcha. Right.
And guys, we've talked a lot on Boston and Newton and Cambridge and big cities. I've looked into Swampscott, Marblehead,
Go ahead.
Gloucester, similar places like that. Would they have more? I read through a lot on Cambridge and stuff. It seems a lot of their rules are based on a big city with big buildings and big uses. You're going to see in a place like Swampscott or Marblehead, it's more geared towards houses, single families, 2, 3, 4, 5-unit buildings, more what we have. I think it might be better. I think you could really research any town. You could research Airbnb rules and find, depending where your thoughts are on it, you could find supporting evidence anywhere. You know, you might be out in Anchorage, Alaska, but you'll find something that agrees with you. I think if we're going to try to adopt some laws and bylaws, for us, maybe we should do it for towns relative to us. Cambridge and those places are great too, but a lot of the stuff I saw there, you know, you couldn't rent over a 12-unit building. You had to live in one unit. It looked like they didn't want people going out and, you know, buying warehouses, and instead of getting a license to operate a hotel, just making one on their own.
Yeah, I
When-
agree with you, Steve. I think we should do comparison of communities similar to Nahant. 'Cause,
Yeah, and-
you know, big cities are different.
And again, I have some experience. I have a lot of experience with rentals. I can tell you, the people I've met and dealt with through Airbnb, again, it could be a personal, it could be a one-off just for me, but I found it easier. I found the people, nicer. I think renting on there, oh, not nicer, meaning, it's just an easier experience. But the people renting off of there are paying a premium. They're coming to a destination, to enjoy it for a couple days, a week, whatever it is. I feel like we're kind of giving Airbnb a rap, like it's, everybody that rents off there is coming to throw a 50 person party, and they're going to turn the town upside down. Or like Michelle was saying about trash, if you got a 2-bedroom house with 4 occupants, I don't know what situation would generate more trash rather than 4 other people. I don't think like people coming to stay at an Airbnb are going to bring trash with them, or generate more trash. I don't know how you could, but definitely something worth looking into. So yeah, I just, I think there's pros and cons of both sides, and instead of just assuming that Airbnb is going to be all of this or all of that, we should bring back some of the hosts and let them weigh in on it and tell the experiences, because the experiences I know of were, not completely agreeing with all the examples I've heard.
All right, well, we certainly want to hear from as many people as that want to express their opinions. That's why we're having these meetings. So let's do this. I mean, Rob, I think let's move ahead with your form for now. And let's also let's each of us, get out there and dive into who's doing what where. If you want to share something, put it on our shared email. Just don't voice an opinion on it. You're just sharing information. That's all we're gonna do. We're not voicing opinions. Oh, this looks good is not what to put on there. Just share it without comment, and we'll come together in 2 weeks, and we'll start picking out what we like and getting rid of what we don't like. I think that's the only reasonable thing to do at this point, and we'll work from there. We're not really under the gun on a time frame thing. We don't have to be. So, let's kind of take our time and get it done right. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
I see John's hand up. All right, so I guess we have to do this by roll call also. So Marie,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Rob,
All right.
and I vote aye. Did I miss anyone? Okay. It's unanimous. We'll adjourn. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll see some shared information in between time. Good meeting, guys.
Thank you.
Good meeting, Wayne. Good meeting, everyone.
Thank you.